talk about cracks and openings and wounds and things that are incomplete, and how there are opportunities for us to do things different in the world. Let me ask a quick question, just go around real quick, okay? By a show of hands, how many of you have hope for the future? Okay, alrighty then. How many of you are not quite sure where we're heading to as a species? You raise your hands up too. All right. Same people are raising their hands up. I'm getting a bit. Okay, maybe the last question is more open-ended. This is not a show of hand question. It's this. What brings you here? Why are you here at the Iris Festival right now? A friend invited you, the food, or something else? Maybe you're looking for something. Would anyone like to try? To learn, okay. Hope, all right. What else? What else? Just shout it out. Okay, one by one now. Here we go. Yeah? Someone said something? Inspiration. What else? Peace. Nikita, you said something? Peace. Okay. Church. Sharing. Okay. I thought I didn't hear church. No. Sharing. Okay. I was like, no, not church. Who else? Who else? Love. What else, brother? Curiosity? Presidency? Precedence? Transcendence. Oh, I was like, president. I was like, wait a minute. This is not that kind of political gathering. Anyone else? Anyone else? Connection, community. So we're seeking something, right? There's a sense in which we want something in the world that our politics today isn't able to provide, right? The world is under a spell right now, and that spell is called liberalism. Liberalism. And that liberalism is an ideology from a time in history that's called the Enlightenment. It taught us that we are alone, that we are isolated, and that we're independent, and basically that we're separate from each other and from the land, right? And the only way to think about politics is in terms of elections and choices and votes and partisan politics and possibly democracy. How many of you know what's been happening in Africa recently around democracy? You know what's been, could you say something about that?
Yes, I mean, some of the countries who were colonies from first are like trying to get separate, and they are doing some
Yes, a coup.
coup, yeah,
Yes.
against
Yes.
the government. So it's like we're different.
Thank you very much. So, especially in West Africa, there are coups everywhere. We've had since 2020, I think, or maybe further back, we've had 9 coups, right? Just in West Africa alone. Not just in West Africa, so Sudan had a coup as well. But anyway, across the continent of Africa, democracy is dying. People are celebrating on the streets when soldiers come in. Now, it's not a thing to celebrate when soldiers take over your government. We've had very, very bad histories with soldiers taking leadership. But people are still rejoicing when soldiers come. Why? Because the stories and the promises of democracy don't seem to be adding up for millions of people that look like me, right? Including in my country, which is the largest black nation on earth, Nigeria, with maybe 200 plus million black people. And we're struggling. We don't know else what to do. Think about what's happening in Gaza right now and Israel. on TV the other day, a man came up on the screen and said, "It seems like politics has failed us. And politics doesn't know how to provide a third way." Everyone say a third way. A third way. Say it after me. A third way. A third way. It seems we're locked in between the left and the right. And both of them are not able to hold the weight of our aspirations as a people right now. So the question right now is, where do we go as a people if politics is abandoning us? I'll just let that plane pass. Is there an airport nearby? There's an airport nearby. Bye. Where do we go if politics has no room for us any longer? Is there any space? How many of you are young activists here that are fighting for climate justice or something? Let me see. Okay, your hands up. Okay, not you. How many of you are in the NGO world? You're artists of some kind. You again, you're the same. You're the only one in Brazil who is. How many of you are rappers? You rap. You do rap music. Nobody? Okay, I just asked that. Oh, you, the president. You do rap music? I just had no reason to ask the question. I just wanted to know who could rap here. It's good to know you, brother. So here's where I want to take us. I want to tell you a story about the generosity of cracks, about the generosity of failure, right? Has anyone here ever been described as a failure? You have? You have? Really? Maybe you didn't do so well in school, and you didn't have good grades, and you were told, yeah, you have to do more to measure up. And all your life you've been trying to measure up. Even at work now, you're trying to measure up. How many of you feel the urge to measure up, that there's a standard to rise up to? You need a house, maybe you need cars, you need a good apartment, you need that Netflix and chill. You need the Netflix and chill. How many of you have your own Netflix account? Your own Netflix account. Not the borrowed one, not the one you stole from someone else, your own Netflix account. All right. I'll take your word for it. But here's the point, and I'm going to tell you a story now. And the story is about the generosity and hospitality of failure, right? In the places where politics doesn't have any room for us, there are cracks, I like to say. And those cracks are invitations for us to think about the world differently. So this is how the story goes. I wrote this story myself. In Lagos, I'll take a quick question. Has anyone here been to Africa before? To Africa? Okay, to Nigeria. South Africa? Kenya? Nairobi? Same place. Rwanda? Wakanda? No one, okay. So Nigeria. Nigeria is where I come from. And Lagos is the city. It's almost like Brazil. It looks a lot like Brazil. If you are living in the village in Nigeria, the thing you want to do is to get to the city, right? And get a job and get an apartment and live the good life. In the village lived this old man. And this old man was about to die. But just before he died, he called his son in the city of Lagos. Lagos is probably, I think it ranks in the first 3 big cities in Africa. Cairo should be the first. Maybe Lagos is second, number 2. So he calls his son and says, why don't you come back to the village, and just before I die, let's do something together. By the way, were you expecting rain today? Were you? It wasn't me that brought it. I didn't. All right. So, Okay. So he calls his son and they go to the village. The son goes to the village and he says, let's build a hut together. Now, in Nigeria, we have mud houses. I don't know if that's available in... I went to Salvador, Bahia, and I went to a Quilombo, and I saw the architecture there. It's something like that. You build a mud house with mud, and you lay it up, and then you put leaves on the top, and that becomes your house. So he says, let's do it together, father and son, our last act together before I die. And the son is an office bank guy. He's not used to this kind of thing, but he obliges his father and decides to do that. So they start to build together. And they build together, and it takes weeks to clear the ground, to sweep the ground, to dig into the earth, to get the leaves, to plant the trees. It's a lot of work. It takes weeks. Sometimes the father is too weak to do this work, and so he goes to his room and he lies down while the son continues. Anyway, to cut the long story short, the son ends the work, and he completes the house. And he's so proud of himself, he runs to his papa. He runs to his father and he says, Father, we finished the house. We did it together. I'm so proud of this moment. And the father said, are you sure it's complete? And the son says, it's completed. I mean, look at it. It's just outside your fence. We've done it together. It's done. What else do we need to do? Should we invite the neighbors? And the father says, are you sure it's complete? And the son says, it's complete. What are you talking about, old man? The house is done. And so the old man gets up from his bed with the last strength he has, and he drags from under the bed a large hammer. And then he goes to the hut, the house, and with one giant swing, he smashes a hole into the wall and breaks a small hole into the wall, and the wall almost falls down. And the son is livid. Brother, what's your name? You're looking with so much fascination. What's your name? Marcelo. So Marcelo is like, what are you doing? What the F are you doing? You're supposed to be celebrating with me at this moment. Instead, you're breaking holes into the house that we've just done. Hope it's okay I use your name. Is it okay? Is it okay? Because you were like... All right, so Marcelo is screaming at his father. And the father says, calm down, Marcelo. Calm down. It's all right. I'm going to tell you why I broke a hole in the wall. And he tells his son that, you see, until there's a hole in the wall, the house is not complete. Because what happens now is that, I need another name. I know your name is Denise. Denise will be fetching water and walking down the road, and she would notice that there's a hole in your wall. And she would ask, what's happening here? And then she would come and say hello to you. When she comes to say hello to you, give her a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then greet her and her children. And when, give me your name. What's your name? Oberta. Oberta. So when Oberta also comes around, she would see with all her 7 children, you have 7 children, right? 8 children? Okay, she'll see with all her 8 children, the hole in the wall, and all of them will come and ask, what happened on the wall here? And then you entertain them. He says, you see, in the city, you've forgotten how to be community, right? It's with the hole in the wall that things get complete. Community is not built by fully holy people or wholesome people. Community is not built by people who have it all together. Why would I need other people if I have all my shit together? Right? Community is built by people who need each other, who have holes in their body. Right? It only makes sense. It only makes sense. Are you clapping for the story or for the fact that she has 8 children and she still looks like that? Right? 8, right? It's 7, 6, 5, 5? 5, I exaggerated a bit. 5 children, right? It's the hole in the wall, the wound that makes us need each other. If you're complete, then there's no need for entanglement. The only reason for entanglement is that we only show up in part. If you show up complete, not needing anyone, full of your degrees, then there's no need for community. And that's what the city, the architecture of the city is premised on. That we can go by and go about our lives without needing each other. Right? And it's such a terrible thing. It's such an unfortunate thing because we do need each other. So it's in those places where we're not complete, where we don't have everything together, where we're confused, where we're not sure how to make ends meet, that there is a lot of generosity and potency and hospitality and power. Okay? Now, I tell you this story because I think that there is a politics that is happening today, and we're all a part of this politics. This politics is like a giant, and it is enlisting and dragging all of us. Maybe this is the reason why I keep on coming back to Brazil, 6 times in Brazil now. It keeps on dragging us to itself. It wants to eat. It's like an orisha. This giant is an orisha. Failure is an orisha. The wound is an orisha. And it's inviting us to feed it as much as we want to be fed by it. Recently, just yesterday, I was in the airport and flying. I landed in Sao Paulo, and I was on the line with 10,000 people in front of me. You know those lines in the airport where they seem like they're unending, and it's just like this, and it's like this, and you just keep on going around and around, and for 2 hours, and you're wondering why I came back here, and before you know it, you're in front of the visa person or the immigration officer. Well, the line in front of me was so much that I was getting really bored, and I started to browse on my phone and just tell my family that I'm fine, I've landed well, blah, blah, blah. And then I noticed every other person on the line was using their phone, which scared me. Have you ever been on those lines where everyone is like this? It feels very dystopian. It feels very scary. So I put my phone away in an act of defiance and just decided to be the odd one out, because I like to be the odd one out, and said, I'm not going to watch my phone. I'm just going to watch people. So I did my second favorite thing, 2 favorite things that I like to do, is to look at people and just take in their differences, right? Especially in Brazil. Racially diverse people. People wearing bright t-shirts, people wearing ugly t-shirts, people faces down, people 6 feet tall, people 2 feet tall, people, just different type of people. And I was just examining and looking. I'm a psychologist, so I like to look at people and just take in the wonder of their expressions. A woman was crying just behind me, and another man was chewing gum so rapidly that it scared me. And so my second thing that I like to do is to avoid gum, okay, on the floor. Now, because I'm slightly autistic, I'm on the autistic spectrum, I don't do very well in public spaces, right? I don't go out very much. And that's because I have this thing with gum, right? I hate gum, chewing gum. I can't. You're laughing. It's a horrible thing for me. I literally, that's why I don't like going to Europe. Like Paris, London, anywhere in Europe, there's always gum on the floor. And anytime I go out with people, I'm doing like this. I'm literally walking like this because I cannot stand. If I stepped on gum, I would leave these shoes. I would literally step out of my shoes and walk away. That's how crazy I am about avoiding gum. Anyway, I was avoiding gum, and there's lots of gum in the airport. You don't know, but I know. I have a spider sense for these things, right? So I was avoiding gum and looking at people and just being part of the line, you know. When all of a sudden something dramatic happened. Who can guess what happened? For $10,000. Connie will give you that. What happened? What happened? No, I didn't step on gum. If I stepped on gum, I won't be here. I'll be on a plane back home. No, it wasn't that, but good guess. Who else? Something dramatic happened. That always happens. It's not dramatic. Something dramatic happened. Good guess, though. Good guess. The flight, no, I was already in Brazil. So even if the flight got canceled, I'm already here. All right, I'll tell you what happened. Someone offered me what? A gun. A gum. No, I would have punched that person. No, not that. I'll tell you what happened, okay? I know you're trying to get to 10,000. A lady in a blue jacket started to cross the line. Okay, I'll tell you why this is dramatic. So the line is going like this, right? The line is going like this. A lady out of nowhere started to cross, you know what I'm talking about? Just go under the line and go. And has that ever happened to you? Anyone here? It's happened to you? How do you feel when it happens? Denise? Mad. Okay, what else? From Brazil? It happens all the time, so you're chill with that? Not really. You're not chill with that, right? Is anyone chill if someone just crosses in front of you? No. If you're chill, just let me know and tell me your spiritual practices. So she started to cross the line. And I'm a political philosopher, a recovering psychologist, a black feminist thinker. I like the idea of crossings. I like the idea of breaking rules. And yet, something happened in my body that I cannot explain. I went, I'm buff, I know, but I went like this. I was like, I leaned forward, and the lady, she didn't even, she wasn't like, excuse me. She didn't say excuse me. She just went like that, as if it was her right to just cross the line. And so the guy in front of me, who was this German dude who was watching a movie with Johnny Depp on it, I was observing as well. And he had the stuff like that. He too was like this. And he kind of leaned into the woman, was like, and I think the question on our faces was, how dare you? How dare you cross the line? That was the question that everyone was asking. And then she turned around and she had this sorrowful look on her face, like she had missed a flight or that she was trying to catch another flight, okay? And suddenly the stuff went down a little bit. And then she continued on her way. And I felt myself encouraging her to go. I was like, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. And she just kept on until she broke everyone's bodies and got to the end. I can't remember where she got to with her transversal crossing, because something else happened to me in that moment. After she crossed, I noticed for the first time the line. The line. I had not noticed before. See, the idea is we often think we are individuals with personal histories, personal racial preferences, personal ideals, personal values, personal development, all of that. We're separate and we're diverse. But there is a way, there's another story that supports the idea that we are actually captured by forces beyond us. See, I was behaving like the line. I was the line angry with something that crossed it out. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I was the line in that moment. I wasn't just myself. I was experiencing the feelings of the line. The line was an organism, a larger creature protecting its territory, right? So when something crosses it out, it wants to defend its territory because the line wants to die. The snaking line up to the immigration officer, its one purpose is to dissipate itself and to die And that's its purpose. But to die, it needs to preserve itself to die, right? So it wants to get there in one piece and then become something else, become a crowd. The line wants to become a crowd. But that lady crossed the line. She crossed it. She was out of the ordinary. She was like Eshu. That's what Eshu does all the time. The trickster crosses through. Doesn't walk here or there. The trickster is the third way. That lady was the third way. And I was the defender of the familiar, the paradigm of the already known. My job was to do my best to pretend, or to protect rather, to protect the territory of the already known. Now, if we can blast off a little bit and consider all the lines we're on, all of us, how we are being enlisted to protect certain politics, right? How many of you would describe yourself as conservative today? You're a conservative, you have conservative ideals. Don't be shy, it's all right. They're mostly the same thing, the left and the right. It's the same bird, okay? How many of you describe yourself as conservative? Excellent, excellent, brother. Give me a high five. Come give me a high five. Come give me a high five for doing that. Don't be shy, I'm black. I'm just black, that's all there is to me. Just black, nothing else. It's just black skin. How many of you describe yourself as left? You're progressive. You use pronouns. Stuff like that. Just let me see your hands up. It's okay, I'm not gonna bite. It's all right, just raise your hands up. How many of you be like, I don't subscribe to the right and the left, mostly because I'm afraid of you right now and I don't know where you're taking us. So I'm just not gonna say anything. Just let me see your hands up. Yeah, I know, I see you. Yeah, it's that most of the time we say, oh, I'm on this side, oh, I'm on this side, but it seems to be the case that the left is looking a lot like the right these days, and the right is looking a lot like the left. They seem to be protecting the same thing. What is that one thing? The idea of the dissociated self, the individual. That is what politics is protecting today. One says experience beyond consciousness. The other says consciousness beyond experience. Some says, oh, gender is this. You cannot formulate gender. Gender is predetermined by God. Another says, well, you can change your gender. It's hyper-individual. It's left up to you. All of them, both of them, the left and the right, are doing the same kind of politics. And that politics is the politics of the Anthropocene. That politics is the politics of death. That politics is the politics of colonization and colonialism, right? What did colonization really do? It taught us to think in terms of isolation. That's what colonization really does. It taught us to think that, hey, you are by yourself. You have no resources outside of yourself, your degrees, your education, and your job, right? Nothing else. You are only by yourself. That's what colonization does. It cuts away all the other parts of yourself that are relevant. Your ancestry, ecology, mushrooms, fungi. It cuts it away. It tells you that you are isolated. And it's that isolation that the line preserves. The line that snakes and looks like the left and the right sometimes, because the line is going like this, right? On one side is left, on one side is right, but it's still the same bloody line that is snaking itself all the way to its death. And so, my people, it seems like what we are looking for is a way of moving out of liberalism. What we're looking for is a way of transcending, imminently transcending the idea that we're alone. And I don't know how many times you felt alone or isolated, because this is what this politics is about. How do we find ways of framing an economy that cherishes gift, for instance, gift cultures? How do we find ways of educating each other that's not based on me better than you, right? The competition that rules in the university system. How do we do other things with the world that is beautiful? How do we find other ways of being in solidarity with those who are suffering in Gaza right now? That does not feel like just saying on Twitter, I stand with Palestinians. Are there other ways of holding solidarity that is a powerful affirmation that we are more than human? Because I have to say this again and again. The human is a colonizing force. The human is a political force. Do you understand what I mean by that? The human is a political force. People like me were not allowed into the category of the human for generations. We were told that we were 3/5 of a white man. We're not quite good enough. My lips are too big. My head is too big. My skin is too dark. I dance too much. I can twerk. So I don't measure up. I think too much with my feelings. I don't have rational precision like my German siblings. So I'm not quite a man yet. But what is the invitation today is to notice that the rational has always been feeling. And feeling has always been a form of rationality. That we have never been alone. And the invitation of today is to find our way again. Yoruba people have a proverb. I want to wrap it up. Yoruba people have a proverb. They say, in order to find your way, you must become lost. In order to find your way, you must become lost. We're too found. We're too boxed up. We're too identified. We're too categorized. We're too indexed. We're like museum pieces that have been finally categorized. We have to practice a different kind of art today that involves us getting lost or embracing surrender. We have to look in the places of our wounds because those wounds are portals to our ancestors. The places where you fail the most has treasure. That's what I'm trying to say. The places where you fail the most has treasure. And those treasures connect you with a commonwealth of resources that transcend your liberalist training within modern architecture. I'll end with a story about me walking in Belgium. After giving a keynote with my friends, about being lost. I usually talk about being lost all the time. I mean, I'm lost most of the time. I gave this keynote, and then I walked off the stage, and my friends, older than me, they're in their 50s and stuff. I'm the youngest of them. They came to see me, and they say, let's go out, Bayo. So we went out, and all my friends are nerds, okay? You know what a nerd is, right? I'm a nerd. Like, I'm very proud of being a nerd. And they're all nerds, and they were happy just to see me, and we're all in our nerdship and just having fun. And we got lost. We got lost because we're in Brussels and we didn't know where we were. So we just got lost. And my friend Alnor, I'm mentioning his name just to make him embarrassed. He pulled out his phone and he said, no, don't worry, I'll just get the Google, what's it called? Google Maps. And so he started to, I said, hold on, how about we practice being lost together and see what happens? And they were like, okay, let's try what Bayo says. So he put back his phone and they were like, what now? And I said, let's just walk and see what happens. We want to get back to the hotel, right? Let's just see what happens. So we're walking and we're talking about everything. We're talking about, these are men in their 50s and 40s. So we were talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man, as people in their 50s do, right? And we're talking about Iron Man and Thor and comic books. And there was this famous one called Asterix and Obelix. Do you know that? You know the comic book? Do you know Tintin? You know Tintin? Okay, so we're talking to Tintin and all those things, Asterix and stuff. And so from Tintin, we moved to Mario, Super Mario. I'm so sorry that we're talking about this and not more important topics. But I'm just being quite honest with you about what we were really talking about. Okay, philosophers together, and we're talking about Super Mario. But that's what we wanted to talk about. So we're speaking about Super Mario, and all of a sudden we shifted to Asterix. And we're speaking about Asterix, right? And meanwhile, all this time we're walking on the streets and we're just going where the street goes. We really have no idea where we're going. No one is consulting the maps. No one knows where we are. When we enter the street, we're still speaking about Asterix. When down the street, and I'm not lying to you, down the street on a house, just facing us across the street, was a wall. And this wall had all the icons of the Marvel cinematic heroes. Iron Man, Spider-Man, not all of them fully, but just their logos, just the logos on the wall. And next to that, on a giant painting, was Asterix. Asterix, and not just Asterix, Asterix was doing this. I'm not lying. I swear to you, I'm not lying. We literally stood at that street just staring at it and looking at each other like, what if Asterix is pointing down the street to our hotel? Would you freak out? And everyone was like, let's give it a shot. Let's try. And our hotel was down that street. I'm not lying. I shit you not. This is the same story about a lady called Philippa Langley. Anyone heard of Philippa Langley? Philippa Langley is the subject of a new movie called The Lost King. An English woman in her 50s now, or 60s, who in 2004 fell in love with the old king from the 15th century called King Richard III. King Richard III. And she just fell in love with him and just wanted to write a book about him, and she joined a society that explores him. And then she became obsessed with an idea, because no one knew where he was buried. King Richard, for 500 years, no one knows where he was buried. So she got this idea that I'm going to find him. All the academics, all the principalities and powers and university operators and funders were laughing in her face because they felt it was impossible. Archaeology doesn't look for specific people. That's not how archaeology works. You don't go saying, I want to find this particular person. You just dig and then you find. You don't go looking for someone, right? It's not like Camila in 500 years from now, some archaeologists will be looking specifically for Camila Cardoso. That's not how archaeology works, right? So, but she wanted to do that. She wanted to find where King Richard was thrown because he wasn't given a befitting burial. He died on a battlefield called Bosworth in 1485. One day she was walking in a parking lot, in England. She was just in some location. She was walking in a parking lot and her body started to vibrate. She started to shake profusely, and down on the ground in that parking lot was a giant letter R. A giant letter R. Of course, to everyone else, R stands for reserved. It's a car park, okay? But to her, R stood for Richard. This is where King Richard was buried. Everyone laughed in her face. They dug the ground and they found King Richard. It's now a movie right now. You can watch it on Netflix, I think. Okay? The Lost King. What is buried behind the ordinary? What kind of royalty, what kind of abundance is hiding behind your failure? when we meet together and share and practice together and explore and experiment together, maybe we might break the stranglehold that liberalism holds on us. Maybe we might find other decolonial pathways out of the ways that modernity has incarcerated and imprisoned us. And that is why I would end with this, that the times are urgent, let us slow down. The times are urgent, let us slow down. The times are urgent, let us slow down. Look around you, listen, the world is alive. And remember, community doesn't happen if you have everything together. You need to be a little bit broken so that the crack might reach out for you. Thank you.